Hi, and welcome to the channel, in which I talk about significant events in British history. Today, we'll be looking at the Spanish Armada, which arrived in England in 1588. The Spanish fleet that Philip assembled is usually depicted as an invincible Goliath to England's little David of a navy. In reality, it was anything but. It wasn't even the biggest fleet ever to have attacked England. The Norman invasion fleet of 1066 and the French force that crossed the Channel in 1545 and sank the Mary Rose both boasted more vessels. The Spanish had around 130 ships, from war galleons to messenger vessels and provision boats. Although the English navy was smaller, a host of merchant and private boats were commandeered to create a force equal to that of the Spanish. In 1558, King Philip II of Spain was 61, a devout Catholic and king of the biggest empire in the world, reaching from South America to the Philippines. Elizabeth I was in her 50s, still unmarried, still childless, and ruling over a Protestant England in which Catholic plots were a constant threat. But in 1554, 34 years earlier, Philip had set sail from the northern Spanish port of Corunna in order to become part of the Tudor royal family. We often forget that before he was King of Spain, Philip II, the great villain in the Armada story, spent 4 years as King of England due to his marriage to Mary, Elizabeth's older half-sister. Mary was desperate to secure England's future as a Catholic country and dreaded the thought that she might die childless and leave the Protestant Elizabeth to take the throne. But Philip felt differently. The alternative to Elizabeth, in the event of his and Mary's marriage producing no children, was Mary, Queen of Scots. But she was Catholic, which was a plus. But, due to her ancestry and powerful ties to the French court, she would have taken England firmly into the orbit of Philip's French enemies. So Philip rooted for his sister-in-law, persuading Mary to release Elizabeth from the house arrest under which she had been placed. When Mary lay dying, Philip realised that the only way he could persuade Elizabeth to support Catholics was to marry her and get her to convert. And so he proposed. Elizabeth, as ever, refused to commit herself. A few months later, hearing that Philip had started new negotiations with a French princess, she said, and this is classic Elizabeth, that he couldn't have loved her all that much if he couldn't wait a month or two for an answer. Although the proposed match failed to materialise, Elizabeth and Philip remained friends. But over the next decade, as Elizabeth and her nation became decidedly Protestant, there were rumblings from Rome. In the late 1560s, Catholics in the north of England attempted an unsuccessful rebellion. To encourage them, in 1570, the Pope excommunicated their queen. Philip was now under pressure from Rome to topple Elizabeth, but with his vast empire to run, he had plenty of other priorities. Although films, notably Elizabeth, the Golden Age, directed by Shekhar Kapur, often show Philip as some sort of god-crazed psychopath, religion alone wasn't a strong enough reason for Philip to invade England. Two other factors tipped his hand. Firstly, Drake's raid on Spanish ships, which Philip saw as piracy. And there was Elizabeth's support of Philip's treacherous, rebellious Protestant subjects in the Netherlands. This finally goaded Philip into planning his armada. Once the Spanish was sailing up the Channel, the next narrative beat in most popular retellings of the story is Elizabeth I's rousing speech to her men at Tilbury on the northern bank of the Thames. That famous piece of oratory in which the Queen tells the assembled troops that she may have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but the heart and stomach of a king, has been dramatised in countless films. Elizabeth is often depicted riding a horse, dressed in white velvet, or even in armour. "I myself will be your general," she tells her men. But this involves a tweaking to the timing of events for a dramatic effect. Elizabeth had come up with the plan to address the troops while the Spanish were still in the Channel. Yet by the time she did so, the Armada was already staring defeat in the face. 11 days earlier, English fireships had attacked the Spanish fleet while it was waiting off France for its rendezvous with Parma's army. These burning vessels caused the Spanish to panic, with further crashes and losses. So when Elizabeth uttered her famous words at Tilbury, what was left of the Armada was on its way home, running up around Scotland and Ireland to get back to Spain. And there, in the north, the death knell was dealt to Spanish plans. Not by Drake, Elizabeth I, or brave English sailors, but by bad weather. Interestingly, the content as well as the timing of Elizabeth's speech has also evolved over time. The sources don't mention the famous heart and stomach of a king line until more than 3 decades after the event. It was first introduced by a Protestant chaplain who had been at Tilbury, and it sounds just like the sort of thing Elizabeth would have said, but historians cannot be sure that she really used those very words. Hi there, me again. Please can you like the video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this, and I will be sure to upload more content as soon as I can.